There is a moment that comes to everyone, perhaps quietly, perhaps dramatically, when you begin to sense that something is not quite right with the way you have been living. Not wrong in a moral sense, but something fundamentally out of alignment with what you truly are. You may have felt it as a subtle unease, a persistent sense that despite all your achievements, all your relationships, all your experiences, there remains a deeper longing that has never been satisfied. This moment is precious. It is the beginning of awakening. It is the first crack in what we might call the ego trap, the elaborate construction of thoughts, beliefs, and identifications that have been mistaken for who you are. But you are not who you think you are. You are something far more profound, far more beautiful, and infinitely more free than the mind can ever comprehend. Right now, as you listen to these words, there is a constant stream of mental activity happening. Perhaps your mind is already commenting on what I am saying. Perhaps it is agreeing or disagreeing, comparing this to something else you have heard, or planning what you will do after this conversation ends. This mental noise, this endless commentary has become so familiar that most people mistake it for themselves. But I invite you to notice something else. What is it that is aware of this mental activity? What is it that can observe the thoughts coming and going, the emotions rising and falling, the sensations appearing and disappearing? This observing presence, this awareness itself is closer to who you truly are than any thought or feeling could ever be. The ego trap is seductive because it promises to solve your problems, to make you happy, to give you a sense of identity and purpose. But it can never deliver on these promises because it is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of reality. The ego believes in separation, in time, in the reality of problems. It feeds on drama, on conflict, on the conviction that something is wrong with this moment and that happiness lies somewhere else in the future, in changed circumstances, in other people's behavior. Have you noticed how the mind seems to have a life of its own? How thoughts arise without your choosing them? How emotions seem to happen to you rather than being consciously created by you? This is the first sign that you are not your thoughts and emotions. You are the space in which they arise and dissolve. You are the awareness that witnesses them without being touched by them. The ego is not evil. It is not something to be fought or destroyed. It is simply a case of mistaken identity, like looking in a mirror and thinking you are the reflection rather than the one looking. The ego is a collection of thoughts and emotions that have been woven together to create a sense of self. It is a story, a narrative, a psychological construct that has been mistaken for reality. But stories, no matter how compelling, are not truth. They are mental formations that arise in consciousness and eventually dissolve back into consciousness. The ego story includes your personal history, your beliefs about yourself and the world, your fears and desires, your sense of what you need to be happy. All of this is mental content, and all mental content is temporary. As you begin to recognize the ego for what it is, you may notice how much energy you have been spending maintaining this false sense of self, how much mental and emotional energy goes into defending your opinions, maintaining your image, pursuing your desires, avoiding your fears. This energy is not lost, it is simply being redirected back to its source, back to the awareness that you are. The most profound recognition comes when you realize that you have been searching for yourself in all the wrong places. You have been looking for yourself in your thoughts, in your emotions, in your roles, in your relationships, in your achievements. But you cannot find yourself in any of these because you are not an object to be found. You are the finding itself. You are the awareness in which all seeking occurs. This is not a philosophical concept to be understood intellectually. This is a living reality to be discovered directly, immediately in this very moment. The ego trap dissolves not through analysis or effort, but through the simple recognition of what you already are. You are not a person having a spiritual experience. You are spiritual consciousness appearing as a person. The breath can be your friend in this discovery. Notice how the breath breathes itself. You do not have to think about breathing. It happens naturally, effortlessly. In the same way, awareness is always present, always here, always now. You do not have to create it or maintain it. You simply need to recognize it, to rest in it, to be it. Can you feel the aliveness in your body right now? Can you sense the space around you? Can you notice the silence from which all sounds arise? This is near. But emptiness. This is the fullness of being. This is what you are beneath all the mental noise, beneath all the emotional drama, beneath all the stories you have told yourself about who you are. The ego trap is not a prison from which you need to escape. It is a dream from which you can awaken, and the awakening is not a distant goal to be achieved. It is available right now in this moment as you rest in the awareness that is reading these words, that is breathing this breath, that is alive as this very experience. The mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. When you are identified with your thoughts, when you believe you are the voice in your head, the mind becomes your master and you become its slave. But when you recognize the space in which thoughts arise, when you rest in the awareness that observes mental activity, then the mind returns to its proper function as a tool to be used when needed and set aside when not. Most human suffering comes from this simple misunderstanding, the belief that you are your thoughts and emotions. But thoughts and emotions are like clouds passing through the sky. They are temporary appearances in the vast space of consciousness. Sometimes the clouds are pleasant, sometimes they are stormy, but the sky itself remains unaffected, unchanged, always present. The ego mind is constantly engaged in comparison, judgment, and evaluation. It divides the world into good and bad, right and wrong, me and not me. It creates a sense of separation where none exists. It projects meaning onto neutral events and then reacts to its own projections. It lives in a world of its own making, a world of psychological time where the past haunts the present and the future threatens with its uncertainties. But reality is much simpler than the mind makes it appear. Reality is what is here now, before the mind interprets it, before it gets labeled and categorized and judged. Reality is the raw aliveness of this moment, the pure beingness that exists before and beyond all thought. The ego thrives on problems because problems give it a sense of purpose and identity. Have you noticed how the mind seems to be constantly looking for problems to solve? How it takes a simple situation and complicates it with analysis, worry, and mental elaboration. The mind says, if only I could solve this problem, then I would be happy. But as soon as one problem is solved, another one appears to take its place. This is because the ego does not want to solve problems. It wants to maintain them. Problems give the ego a sense of reality, a sense of importance. Without problems, the ego would have nothing to do, and it fears this dissolution more than anything else. So it creates problems where none exist, maintains old problems that could easily be released, and anticipates future problems that may never arise. But you are not a problem to be solved. You are a mystery to be lived. You are not a collection of issues that need to be fixed. You are perfect as you are, whole as you are, complete as you are. The ego cannot accept this because it would demean the end of its existence. The ego needs to believe that something is wrong, that something needs to be improved, that you are not enough as you are. The most liberating recognition is that you do not need to fix yourself because you are not broken. You do not need to improve yourself because you are not lacking. You do not need to find yourself because you are not lost. These are all ego concepts that dissolve when you rest in the reality of what you are. What you are is the consciousness in which all experience arises. You are the awareness that witnesses thoughts without being thoughts, that experiences emotions without being emotions, that perceives the body without being the body. You are the unchanging background of all changing phenomena. The ego creates a sense of self through identification with form, with thoughts, emotions, sensations, roles, possessions, beliefs. But form is temporary, and anything that is temporary cannot be who you truly are. You are the formless essence that expresses itself through form but is never limited by form. This recognition brings great freedom. When you are no longer identified with the changing phenomena of experience, you are free to enjoy them without clinging to them, free to experience them without being disturbed by them. Pleasure and pain, success and failure, praise and criticism, all of these become like weather patterns that pass through the sky of consciousness without affecting the sky itself. The ego mind is always seeking, always wanting, always trying to get somewhere else. But seeking is a form of not finding, and wanting is a form of not having. When you rest in the awareness that you are, seeking stops because you realize you have always been what you were looking for. The search ends not in finding something new, but in recognizing what has always been present. This is not a passive state of being. This is the most dynamic, creative, intelligent state possible. From this space of non-seeking, right action arises naturally. From this space of non-wanting, true fulfillment is realized. From this space of non-resistance, life flows with effortless ease. The ego trap is maintained through unconscious identification with mental and emotional content. But consciousness is like the sun. It remains unchanged whether it is shining on flowers or garbage. The content of consciousness may vary, but consciousness itself remains pure, untouched, forever free. Who is the one who thinks your thoughts? This may seem like a strange question, but it points to something essential. Most people assume that they are the thinker of their thoughts, that they are in control of their mental activity. But have you ever noticed how thoughts seem to arise by themselves without your choosing them? Have you ever tried to stop thinking and discovered that you cannot? This is a crucial recognition. If you cannot control your thoughts, if you cannot stop them at will, then how can you be the thinker? You are not the thinker. You are the awareness in which thinking occurs. You are not the author of your thoughts. You are the space in which thoughts arise and dissolve. The voice in your head, the internal narrator that seems to comment on everything, is not you. It is a learned pattern, a mental habit that has been mistaken for identity. This voice may claim to be you, may use the word I constantly, but it is simply a collection of thoughts that have been woven together to create the illusion of a thinking self. But if you are not your thoughts, then who are you? You are the one who is aware of thoughts. You are the consciousness that witnesses mental activity without being caught up in it. You are the presence that remains unchanged while thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky. This is not a philosophical theory. This is something you can verify directly in your own experience. Right now, as you listen to these words, notice that there is something in you that is aware of the listening. Notice that there is something in you that is aware of whatever thoughts or reactions may be arising. This awareness is not itself a thought. It is the space in which thoughts appear. The thinking self is a construction, a conceptual overlay on the simplicity of pure awareness. It is like a character in a dream who believes the dream is real. But when you wake up, you realize that the character was never real. It was just a temporary appearance in consciousness. The ego mind creates a sense of continuity through memory, connecting past experiences to create a story of me and my life. But memory is also just thought arising in present awareness. The past exists only as present moment mental activity. The future exists only as present moment mental activity. There is only now, and in this now, there is only awareness. When you recognize that you are not the thinker, but the awareness in which thinking occurs, a profound shift happens. You are no longer at the mercy of your thoughts. You are no longer driven by compulsive thinking. You are free to use thought when it is useful and to rest in thoughtless awareness when it is not. This does not mean that thinking stops or that the mind becomes blank. It means that thinking is no longer unconscious. It means that you are no longer identified with the mental content that arises. You can observe thoughts without being pulled into them. You can watch emotions without being overwhelmed by them. You can experience sensations without being controlled by them. The illusion of the thinking self is maintained through constant mental activity. The mind stays busy to avoid the recognition that there is no substantial self to be found in thought. But when you allow yourself to rest in the spaces between thoughts, when you abide in the silence from which all mental activity arises, the illusion begins to dissolve. This dissolution is not a loss, it is a gain. It is the gain of freedom, of peace, of your true nature. You lose nothing real and gain everything that is real. You lose the burden of maintaining a false identity and gain the ease of resting in what you naturally are. The thinking self is like a wave that believes it is separate from the ocean, but the wave is not separate from the ocean. It is the ocean expressing itself as a wave. In the same way, the individual self is not separate from universal consciousness. It is consciousness expressing itself as an individual. When this is recognized, the sense of separation dissolves. You realize that you are not a separate being in a hostile universe. You are the universe expressing itself as a being. You are not isolated awareness trapped in a body. You are universal awareness appearing as a body. This recognition transforms everything. Fear diminishes because you realize there is nowhere to go and nothing to lose. Desire relaxes because you realize you are already whole. Conflict resolves because you recognize there is no other to fight against. There is only one consciousness appearing as many forms, only one awareness manifesting as countless experiences. The thinking self dies many times, but awareness never dies. Thoughts come and go, but the awareness of thoughts remains. Emotions arise and pass away, but the awareness of emotions is untouched. The body changes and eventually dies, but the awareness that witnesses the body is timeless. You are not the content of awareness, you are awareness itself. You are not the objects that appear in consciousness, you are consciousness itself. This is not something to be achieved or attained. This is what you are right now in this moment, before and beyond all thought. The illusion of the thinking self is like a hypnotic trance, but the trance can be broken in any moment by the simple recognition of what you are. You are not the hypnotized subject, you are the awareness that can witness the hypnosis. You are not the dreamer, you are the consciousness in which the dream appears. This awakening is not a special experience available only to a chosen few. It is the natural state of consciousness, temporarily obscured by identification with thought. It is like the sun, temporarily hidden by clouds. The sun is always there, always shining, always perfect. The clouds of thought may come and go, but the sun of awareness remains forever present, forever free. Deep within the human psyche lies what we might call the pain body, an accumulation of old emotional pain that has not been fully felt, not been completely processed, not been allowed to dissolve naturally. This pain body is like a parasite that feeds on suffering, that creates drama and conflict to sustain itself, that keeps you trapped in patterns of emotional reactivity that feel completely involuntary. The pain body is not you, but it has been mistaken for you. It is not your true nature, but it has been identified with so completely that it feels like an inseparable part of who you are. It is the emotional component of the ego, the feeling sense of being a separate, vulnerable, incomplete being in a threatening world. Have you ever noticed how certain situations seem to trigger an emotional reaction that is completely out of proportion to what is actually happening? How someone says something relatively innocent, and suddenly you are flooded with anger, hurt, or defensiveness. This is the pain body being activated, using the present moment as fuel for old emotional patterns. The pain body loves negative thinking because negative thinking feeds it. It loves conflict because conflict energizes it. It loves drama because drama gives it a sense of reality and importance. It will actually create situations of suffering to maintain its existence. It will interpret neutral events as threatening, see attack where none exists, and react to its own projections as if they were real. But the pain body is not real in the way it appears to be. It is a collection of old emotions that have been stored in the body and mind, waiting for the right trigger to be reactivated. It is like a recording that plays the same old song over and over again, a program that runs automatically whenever certain conditions are met. The pain body thrives on identification. When you believe you are the anger, when you think you are the hurt, when you become the fear, the pain body has succeeded in its goal. It has convinced you that these temporary emotional states are who you are, that these passing phenomena define your identity. But you are not your emotions any more than you are your thoughts. Emotions are like weather patterns in the sky of consciousness. They arise, they intensify, they dissolve, but the sky remains unchanged, untouched, forever free. You are the sky, not the weather. The dissolution of the pain body does not happen through fighting it or trying to get rid of it. It happens through conscious observation, through witnessing emotional states without becoming them. When you can observe anger without being angry, when you can watch sadness without being sad, when you can witness fear without being afraid, the pain body begins to lose its grip. This is not suppression or denial. This is conscious feeling, which is completely different from unconscious emotional reactivity. When you feel consciously, you bring the light of awareness to the emotional energy, and this light transforms the energy. What was once painful becomes simply sensation. What was once overwhelming becomes manageable. What was once personal becomes impersonal. The pain body feeds on unconsciousness. It requires you to be identified with it, to believe you are it, to react from it automatically. But consciousness is like sunlight to a vampire. It cannot survive in the light of awareness. When you bring conscious attention to emotional states, they begin to dissolve naturally. This process requires patience and compassion. The pain body has been with you for a long time, perhaps since childhood. It has been your companion through many difficulties, your way of processing experiences that were too overwhelming to handle consciously. It served a purpose, but that purpose is now complete. The pain body is not your enemy. It is simply unconscious emotional energy that is ready to be transformed. It is like a child who has been acting out because it needs attention. When you give it the attention of awareness, when you hold it in the space of conscious presence, it begins to relax, to settle, to find peace. One of the most important recognitions is that you are not responsible for healing the pain body. You are not responsible for making it go away or transforming it into something else. You are simply responsible for being present with it, for not running away from it, for not fighting it, for not indulging it. Presence is the healing. Awareness is the medicine. Consciousness is the cure. When you rest in the awareness that you are, the pain body is held in a space of such vast acceptance that it naturally dissolves back into the peace from which it arose. The pain body may resist this dissolution. It may intensify its activity, create more drama, trigger stronger reactions. This is normal. It is the death throes of an old pattern, the final attempts of an unconscious structure to maintain its existence. But if you remain present, if you continue to observe without being pulled in, the resistance will eventually exhaust itself. This is not a process that happens once and is finished. The pain body may be activated many times as it works its way out of your system. But each time you meet it with presence instead of reactivity, each time you observe it without becoming it, it becomes weaker and less compelling. Eventually you may notice that emotional states arise and pass away without creating any disturbance in your peace. You may experience anger without being angry, sadness without being sad, fear without being afraid. The emotions are there, but they are like clouds passing through the sky, temporary appearances in the vast space of consciousness. This is emotional freedom. This is the end of emotional suffering. This is the dissolution of the pain body through the power of presence. You are not the victim of your emotions. You are the space in which emotions arise and dissolve. You are not at the mercy of old patterns. You are the consciousness that can observe patterns without being controlled by them. The pain body was never real in the way it seemed to be. It was a collection of stored emotions that had been mistaken for identity. When this identification is released, when the emotions are allowed to dissolve in the light of awareness, what remains is your natural state of peace, joy, and freedom. This is not a distant goal to be achieved. This is available right now in this moment as you rest in the awareness that is reading these words. You are not your emotions. You are the consciousness in which emotions appear. You are not the pain body. You are the awareness that can witness the pain body without being disturbed by it. The ego lives in time, but you live in eternity. The ego exists in the psychological constructs of past and future, but you exist in the eternal now. This is one of the most profound recognitions that can dawn in human consciousness, the understanding that past and future are not real in the way they appear to be, that they are mental constructs that exist only in the present moment as thoughts and images. Right now, as you listen to these words, where is the past? Can you find it anywhere except in your memory, which is present moment mental activity? Where is the future? Can you locate it anywhere except in your imagination, which is also present moment mental activity? The past exists only as present thoughts about what happened. The future exists only as present thoughts about what might happen. But the ego cannot survive without time. It needs the past to create a sense of identity, a story of who you are and what has happened to you. It needs the future to create a sense of purpose, goals to pursue, destinations to reach. Without time, the ego has no foundation, no substance, no reality. This is why the ego is constantly pulling you out of the present moment. It fills your mind with memories of the past, sometimes pleasant ones that create longing and nostalgia, sometimes painful ones that create resentment and regret. It fills your imagination with scenarios of the future, sometimes exciting ones that create anticipation and desire, sometimes threatening ones that create anxiety and fear. But when you rest in the present moment, when you abide in the now, you discover that you are not dependent on time for your sense of being. You are not a story that unfolds in time. You are the timeless awareness in which all stories appear and dissolve. The present moment is not a point in time between past and future. The present moment is the only reality that exists. It is the eternal now, the timeless dimension of being, the space in which all experience occurs. Past and future are concepts that arise in the eternal now, but they have no reality apart from the now. This recognition can be initially disorienting for the mind. The mind is so accustomed to living in time that it cannot imagine existence without it. But existence without time is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is not absence. It is presence. It is not nothing. It is everything. When you surrender to the present moment, when you stop trying to get somewhere else, when you cease the endless mental activity of comparing this moment to other moments, something profound happens. You discover that this moment is not lacking anything. This moment is complete, perfect, whole as it is. The ego says this moment is not enough. Something needs to be different. Someone needs to change. Something needs to happen. But this is the voice of time, the voice of the ego that exists only in the psychological constructs of past and future. When you rest in the present moment, you discover that this moment is not only enough, it is all there is. This does not mean that you become passive or that you stop taking action. It means that action arises from presence rather than from the ego's restless seeking. It means that you do what needs to be done without the mental suffering that comes from wanting things to be different than they are. The past cannot be changed and the future cannot be controlled. These are simple facts that the ego refuses to accept. The ego spends enormous amounts of energy trying to change the past through regret, resentment, and mental repetition of old scenarios. It spends enormous amounts of energy trying to control the future through worry, planning, and mental rehearsal of possible scenarios. But all of this energy is wasted because the past and future are not real in the way the ego believes them to be. They are mental constructs that exist only in the present moment as thoughts and images. When you withdraw your attention from these mental constructs and rest in the present moment, you reclaim all of this wasted energy. The present moment is the only place where life happens. It is the only place where you can be happy, the only place where you can be at peace, the only place where you can be free. The ego promises that happiness is waiting in the future, that peace will come when certain conditions are met, that freedom will arrive when certain problems are solved. But these are all illusions created by the ego's need for time. Happiness is not a future destination, it is a present reality. Peace is not a future achievement, it is a present recognition. Freedom is not a future attainment, it is a present state of being. They are all available right now, in this moment, when you stop seeking them in time and rest in the timeless awareness that you are. The dissolving of psychological time does not mean that you ignore practical time. You can still use clocks and calendars, make appointments and keep schedules. But you do these things from presence rather than from the ego's anxious relationship with time. You use time as a tool rather than being enslaved by it.
This is the difference between chronological time and psychological time. Chronological time is practical. It helps you coordinate activities and navigate the world. Psychological time is the ego's creation. It is the mental projection of past and future that keeps you trapped in suffering. When you live in the present moment, you are not living in time at all. You are living in eternity. You are not bound by the limitations of the ego's temporal existence. You are free to be what you are, timeless consciousness expressing itself in the world of time. The present moment is the gateway to eternity. It is the portal through which you can access your true nature. It is the space in which the ego dissolves and authentic being emerges. It is not a concept to be understood, but a reality to be lived. Right now, in this moment, you are not your past. You are not your future. You are not your story. You are the consciousness that is aware of all of these mental constructs. You are the eternal presence that witnesses the coming and going of all temporal phenomena. This is freedom. This is peace. This is what you are when you stop trying to be someone else, when you stop trying to get somewhere else, when you stop trying to live in some other time. You are the timeless awareness that is alive as this very moment, breathing this very breath, experiencing this very experience. There is a profound shift that occurs when you recognize the difference between being lost in the content of experience and resting as the awareness in which all experience arises. This shift is like waking up from a dream, like stepping out of a movie in which you had been completely absorbed, like recognizing that you are not the waves but the ocean itself. Most human beings live their entire lives identified with the content of consciousness, with thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions, experiences of all kinds. They believe they are the character in the story rather than the consciousness in which the story appears. They mistake themselves for the objects of awareness rather than recognizing themselves as awareness itself. But you are not any object that can be perceived. You are not any experience that can be had. You are not any phenomenon that can be observed. You are the perceiving itself, the experiencing itself, the observing itself. You are the unchanging awareness in which all changing phenomena appear and disappear. This recognition is both simple and profound. It is simple because awareness is the most obvious thing about you. It is what you are right now, what you have always been, what you can never not be. It is profound because it completely transforms your relationship to every aspect of existence. When you rest as awareness, rather than being lost in the content of awareness, you discover that you are not affected by the coming and going of experiences. Thoughts may be peaceful or agitated, but the awareness of thoughts remains unperturbed. Emotions may be pleasant or painful, but the awareness of emotions remains unchanged. Sensations may be comfortable or uncomfortable, but the awareness of sensations remains undisturbed. This is not a detached, cold,
or indifferent state. This is the most intimate, warm, and loving state possible. It is the recognition that you are not separate from anything that appears in your experience. You are the space in which everything appears, the consciousness in which everything is known, the awareness in which everything is experienced. The observer and the observed are not two separate things. They are two aspects of one reality. The observer is awareness itself, and the observed is the content of awareness. But the content of awareness is not separate from awareness any more than waves are separate from the ocean or clouds are separate from the sky. This recognition dissolves the sense of separation that is the root of all suffering. When you realize that you are not a separate observer looking at a separate world, when you recognize that you are the very consciousness in which the world appears, the illusion of separation dissolves. You are not in the world. The world is in you. You are not having experiences. You are the consciousness in which experiences appear. This is not a philosophical position or a metaphysical belief. This is a direct recognition of what you are. It is as obvious as the awareness that is reading these words right now. You cannot doubt this awareness because you would have to be aware in order to doubt it. You cannot question this consciousness because you would have to be conscious in order to question it. The mind may try to make this recognition into a concept, into something to be understood or achieved, but awareness is not a concept. It is what you are. It is not something to be understood. It is what does the understanding. It is not something to be achieved. It is what you already are. This awareness is not personal. It does not belong to you. You belong to it. It is not yours. You are its expression. It is not contained within your body. Your body appears within it. It is not limited by your mind. Your mind appears within it. It is not bound by your identity. Your identity appears within it. When you rest as awareness, you discover that you are not a person who is aware. You are awareness itself, temporarily appearing as a person. You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You are spiritual consciousness appearing as a human being. This recognition does not diminish your humanity. It completes it. It does not make you less human. It makes you more human. It does not separate you from others. It reveals your unity with all beings. It does not take you out of the world. It brings you fully into the world. The play of observer and observed continues, but now it is recognized as play rather than being taken as ultimate reality. Thoughts continue to arise, but they are no longer mistaken for who you are. Emotions continue to flow, but they are no longer identified with. Sensations continue to appear, but they are no longer clung to or resisted. This is freedom. This is peace. This is what you are when you stop trying to be something other than what you are. You are not the content of consciousness. You are consciousness itself. You are not the objects of awareness. You are awareness itself. You are not the phenomena that appear and disappear. You are the unchanging presence in which all phenomena appear and disappear. The observer and the observed are like two sides of the same coin. You cannot have one without the other, and yet they are not two separate things. They are two aspects of one undivided reality. When this is recognized, the dualistic sense of separation dissolves into the unity of being. This is the most natural thing in the world. It is not a special state to be achieved or maintained. It is what you are right now, what you have always been, what you can never not be. It is the awareness that is reading these words, the consciousness that is alive as this very moment, the presence that is breathing this very breath. You are not the observer of your experience. You are the awareness in which the observer appears. You are not the knower of your thoughts. You are the consciousness in which the knower appears. You are not the experiencer of your life. You are the awareness in which the experiencer appears. This is who you are. This is what you are. This is the reality that is closer to you than your own breath, more intimate than your own heartbeat, more present than your own thoughts. You are the awareness that is aware of being aware, the consciousness that is conscious of being conscious, the presence that is present to its own presence. In the deepest meditation, in the most profound moments of spiritual awakening, in the spaces between thoughts and beyond the reach of the mind, there is a dimension of existence that can only be called stillness. This is not the absence of movement or sound, but the presence of something so fund, mental, so essential, so pure, that it underlies all movement and sound, while remaining eternally undisturbed. This stillness is not empty, it is full. It is not nothing, it is everything. It is not absent, it is the most present thing you can ever experience. It is the source from which all experience arises and the destination to which all experience returns. It is the essence of who you are before you became someone, the reality of what you are beyond all identity. Most people are afraid of stillness because they confuse it with death, with boredom, with nothingness. But stillness is not death, it is life itself. It is not boredom, it is the source of all joy. It is not nothingness, it is the fullness of being. It is what you are when you stop trying to be something else, when you cease the endless activity of becoming and rest in the simplicity of being. The mind cannot understand stillness because the mind is movement. The mind is the constant flow of thoughts, the endless stream of mental activity, the perpetual becoming that never arrives at being. But stillness is not the opposite of movement. It is the background against which all movement appears, the screen on which all mental activity is projected. When you rest in stillness, you discover that you are not separate from it. You are not someone who experiences stillness, you are stillness itself, temporarily appearing as someone. You are not a person who finds peace, you are peace itself, temporarily expressing as a person. You are not an individual who discovers truth, you are truth itself, temporarily manifesting as an individual. This stillness is always available. It is not something you have to create or earn or achieve. It is what you are, beneath all the mental noise, behind all the emotional drama, beyond all the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what your life means. It is the constant background of all experience, the unchanging witness of all change. The pathway to this stillness is not through effort, but through surrender. It is not through doing, but through being. It is not through trying to stop thoughts, but through no longer identifying with them. It is not through forcing the mind to be quiet, but through recognizing the silence that is always already present. You can access this stillness right now. As you listen to these words, notice that there is a quality of space around them, a silence from which they arise and into which they dissolve. This silence is not empty. It is pregnant with possibility. It is not absent. It is the most present thing you can experience. The breath can be your doorway into the stillness, not by concentrating on the breath, but by allowing the breath to breathe itself while you rest in the awareness that observes the breathing. Not by controlling the breath, but by surrendering to the natural rhythm of life that expresses itself as breathing. In this stillness, you discover that you are not a problem to be solved. You are not a puzzle to be figured out. You are not a project to be completed. You are perfect as you are, whole as you are, complete as you are. The seeking stops because you realize you have always been what you were looking for. This is not a passive state. This is the most dynamic, creative, intelligent state possible. From the stillness, right action arises naturally. From this silence, true words are spoken. From this emptiness, authentic love emerges. It is not the absence of activity, but the source of all meaningful activity. The stillness is not affected by what happens in the world of form. It is not disturbed by thoughts or emotions or sensations. It is not damaged by difficult circumstances or enhanced by pleasant ones. It is the unchanging background of all changing phenomena, the eternal witness of all temporal events. When you rest in this stillness, you discover that you are not vulnerable in the way you thought you were. You are not threatened by change because you are the unchanging awareness in which change appears. You are not threatened by loss because you are the eternal presence that cannot be lost. You are not threatened by death because you are the deathless consciousness that witnesses all coming and going. This stillness is not a state to be maintained or a level to be sustained. It is what you are. It is not something you fall into or fall out of. It is what you are when you stop trying to be something else. It is not a special experience. It is the ordinary reality of what you are beneath all experience. The mind may try to capture this stillness to make it into a concept or a memory or a goal, but stillness cannot be captured because it is not an object. It cannot be remembered because it is not in time. It cannot be achieved because it is what you already are. This stillness is the gateway to truth. It is the doorway to reality. It is the portal through which you can access your true nature. It is not a destination to be reached, but a recognition of what you have never left. It is not a state to be attained, but an acknowledgement of what you have always been. In this stillness, all questions are answered not through information, but through the dissolution of the questioner. All problems are solved not through solutions, but through the recognition that there was never really a problem. All seeking ends not through finding, but through the realization that the seeker was never separate from what was being sought. This is the stillness that passeth all understanding. This is the peace that surpasseth all experience. This is the truth that transcends all concepts. This is what you are when you stop trying to be anything at all. Right now, in this moment, you can rest in this stillness. You can surrender to this silence. You can be this peace. It is not far away. It is here. It is not in the future. It is now. It is not something you need to become. It is what you are. The ultimate spiritual practice is not meditation, not prayer, not ritual, not study, but the simple recognition that you are not who you think you are. This recognition dissolves the false sense of self that has been the source of all suffering, all seeking, all sense of separation from the wholeness of being. Identity is like a suit of clothes that you have been wearing for so long that you forgot you were wearing it. You began to believe that you were the clothes rather than the one wearing them. You identified with the temporary rather than recognizing the eternal, with the changing rather than acknowledging the unchanging, with the personal rather than realizing the universal. But who you think you are is not who you are. Who you think you are is a collection of thoughts, memories, beliefs, preferences, roles, and identifications that have been woven together to create a sense of self. This constructed self is not false in the sense of being evil or wrong. It is false in the sense of being incomplete, temporary, and ultimately illusory. The dissolution of this false identity does not happen through analysis or effort. It happens through the simple recognition of what you are beyond all identity. It happens through resting in the awareness that is aware of all identifications without being limited by any of them. You are not your name, though you may use a name. You are not your role, though you may play many roles. You are not your history, though you may have many stories. You are not your preferences, though you may have many likes and dislikes. You are not your beliefs, though you may hold many opinions. You are the awareness in which all of these temporary phenomena appear and disappear. This awareness is not personal. It does not belong to you. You belong to it. It is not yours. You are its expression. It is not limited by your body. Your body appears within it. It is not contained by your mind. Your mind appears within it. It is not bound by your identity. Your identity appears within it. When you rest in this awareness, you discover that you are not a separate individual trying to find your way back to wholeness. You are wholeness itself, temporarily appearing as an individual. You are not a fragment trying to reconnect with the whole. You are the whole, temporarily expressing as a fragment. This recognition does not destroy your individuality. It completes it. It does not make you less unique. It makes you more authentic. It does not diminish your humanity. It fulfills it. You continue to function as an individual, but you are no longer imprisoned by the illusion of separation. The ego fears this dissolution because it equates it with death. But it is not death. It is birth. It is not the end of you. It is the beginning of who you really are. It is not the loss of yourself. It is the discovery of your true self. What dies is only the illusion of being separate, limited, and incomplete. This process of dissolution is not something you do. It is something you allow. It is not something you achieve. It is something you surrender to. It is not something you accomplish. It is something you recognize. You cannot force the false self to dissolve, but you can stop energizing it through identification. The false self is maintained through attention and energy. When you constantly think about yourself, worry about yourself, protect yourself, promote yourself, you are feeding the illusion of separation. But when you rest in the awareness that you are, when you abide in the presence that is your true nature, the false self naturally dissolves through lack of attention. This is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. The false self may reassert itself many times, especially in challenging situations, but each time you recognize it as a temporary construction rather than your true nature, it loses more of its power over you. Eventually, you may notice that you can function perfectly well without constantly thinking about yourself. You may discover that you can respond to situations without the mental commentary that used to accompany every experience. You may find that you can be present with others without the self-consciousness that used to create separation. This is the flowering of authentic being. This is the emergence of your true nature. This is what you are when you stop trying to be someone else. You are not the constructed self that you have been maintaining through mental effort. You are the awareness in which all construction appears and dissolves. The dissolution of identity through presence is not a loss, but a liberation. It is not a death, but a rebirth. It is not the end of the story, but the beginning of reality. What you lose is only the burden of maintaining a false sense of self. What you gain is the freedom of being what you are. This freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. It is the recognition that you are not separate from the wholeness of existence. It is the understanding that you are not an isolated individual in a hostile universe. It is the realization that you are the universe itself, temporarily appearing as an individual. When this is recognized, fear dissolves because there is nowhere to go and nothing to lose. Desire relaxes because you realize you're already whole. Conflict ends because you recognize there is no other to fight against. There is only one consciousness appearing as many forms, only one awareness manifesting as countless experiences. This is not a philosophical position or a metaphysical belief. This is a direct recognition of what you are. It is as obvious as the awareness that is reading these words right now. You cannot doubt this awareness because you would have to be aware in order to doubt it. The dissolution of identity through presence is the most natural thing in the world. It is not a special achievement or a mystical experience. It is simply the recognition of what you are when you stop trying to be something else. It is the acknowledgement of what you have always been beneath all the layers of conditioning and identification. You are not the false self that you have been maintaining. You are the awareness in which the false self appears. You are not the identity that you have been defending. You are the consciousness in which identity arises and dissolves. You are not the person you think you are. You are the eternal presence that is aware of being a person. This is who you are. This is what you are. This is the reality that is closer to you than your own breath, more intimate than your own heartbeat, more present than your own thoughts. You are the awareness that is aware of being aware, the consciousness that is conscious of being conscious, as the presence that is present to its own presence. Between every two thoughts there is a space. In this space there is no time, no identity, no problems, no stories. There is only pure awareness, pristine consciousness, the original face of being before it takes on any particular form or expression. This space is not empty. It is full of potential, pregnant with possibility, alive with the intelligence of existence itself. Most people never notice this space because they are too busy with the thoughts themselves. They are caught up in the content of thinking, absorbed in the drama of mental activity, identified with the voice in their head. But the space between thoughts is where your true power lies, where your authentic nature can be discovered, where freedom from the tyranny of the mind can be found. This space is not something you create or manufacture. It is always already there, like the silence that exists between words, like the emptiness that exists between objects, like the stillness that exists between movements. It is the background of all mental activity, the canvas on which all thoughts are painted, the stage on which all mental drama is performed. The space between thoughts is not a void or an absence. It is the most present thing you can experience. It is consciousness itself, pure and unconditioned, before it becomes conscious of anything in particular. It is awareness aware of itself, being itself, presence present to its own presence. When you rest in this space, you discover that you are not dependent on thinking for your existence. You are not a bundle of thoughts held together by memory and projection. You are the consciousness in which thoughts appear and disappear, the awareness that remains unchanged, whether thoughts are present or absent. This recognition is profoundly liberating. It means that your peace does not depend on having peaceful thoughts. It means that your happiness does not depend on having happy thoughts. It means that your freedom does not depend on having free thoughts. You are the space in which all thoughts arise, and this space is inherently peaceful, inherently happy, inherently free. The space between thoughts is where true intelligence emerges, not the intelligence of the mind, which is based on memory and calculation, but the intelligence of consciousness itself, which is immediate, intuitive, and always appropriate to the present moment. This intelligence does not think, it knows. It does not calculate, it recognizes. It does not analyze, it understands. When you learn to rest in this space, you discover that you can respond to life situations without the mental commentary that used to accompany every experience. You can act without the inner dialogue that used to create doubt and confusion. You can be present without the stream of thoughts that used to distract you from the immediacy of the moment. This is not a blank or unconscious state. This is the most conscious state possible. It is consciousness without an object, awareness without content, presence without particular form. It is what you are when you are not being anything. Now, in particular, when you are not trying to be someone, when you are not engaged in the activity of becoming. The breath can be your guide into this space, not by concentrating on the breath, but by allowing the breath to breathe itself while you rest in the awareness that observes the breathing. In the pause between the inhalation and the exhalation, in the stillness between the exhale and the inhale, you can discover the space that is always available. This space is not limited by time or circumstance. It is equally present in moments of joy and moments of sorrow, in times of clarity and times of confusion, in periods of activity and periods of rest. It is the constant background of all experience, the unchanging witness of all change. From this space, creativity emerges naturally, not the creativity of the mind, which recombines old elements in new ways, but the creativity of consciousness itself, which brings forth something genuinely new, genuinely fresh, genuinely alive. This creativity does not come from effort or strain, but from the relaxation into what you are. The space between thoughts is where love resides. Not the love of the heart, which is emotional and personal, but the love of consciousness itself, which is impersonal and universal. This love is not a feeling, it is a recognition. It is the recognition that there is no separation between yourself and anything else, that you are the consciousness in which all experience appears. When you rest in this space, you discover that you are not a person who sometimes experiences love. You are love itself, temporarily appearing as a person. You are not an individual who sometimes feels peaceful. You are peace itself, temporarily expressing as an individual. You are not a separate being who sometimes touches truth. You are truth itself, temporarily manifesting as a being. This space is always available. It is not something you have to earn or achieve or deserve. It is what you are right now, what you have always been, what you can never not be. It is the awareness that is reading these words, the consciousness that is alive as this very moment, the presence that is breathing this very breath. The space between thoughts is not a state to be maintained or a level to be sustained. It is what you are. It is not something you fall into or fall out of. It is what you are when you stop trying to be something else. It is not a special experience. It is the ordinary reality of what you are beneath all experience. To access this space, you do not need to stop thinking. You simply need to recognize that you are not your thoughts. You do not need to empty your mind. You simply need to acknowledge that you are not your mind. You do not need to achieve a particular state. You simply need to rest in what you already are. This is the most natural thing in the world. It is as simple as recognizing the space in which these words are appearing, as obvious as the awareness that is aware of reading them, as immediate as the consciousness that is conscious of being conscious. The space between thoughts is the doorway to freedom. It is the gateway to peace. It is the portal through which you can access your true nature. It is not a destination to be reached, but a recognition of what you have never left. It is not a state to be attained, but an acknowledgement of what you have always been. Right now, in this moment, you can rest in this space. You can be this space. You can recognize that you are this space. It is not far away. It is here.